We've had a chance to play with both the Samsung Galaxy Fold and the Huawei Mate XS, arguably two of the most popular smartphone to tablet style devices currently on the market. But they both go about implementing the foldable concept in different ways. For the Fold, it's a simple case of two screens. When folded, you look at a smaller 4.6-inch Super AMOLED 720 by 1680 pixel 21:9 cover display that transforms when opened into a 7.3-inch form factor with that dynamic AMOLED display. On the Huawei Mate XS, it's pretty much one single display, and to be honest, this is how many of you might have imagined foldable screen phones before they started hitting the market, or that's what I imagined. So the Mate XS has a primary 6.6-inch 1148 by 2480 pixel 19.5:9 AMOLED panel, which opens up to an 8-inch foldable OLED display. The way these are, the 7.3-inch size still allows you to use the Fold one-handed, but using the Mate XS one-handed isn't very possible. Now, these designs go a fair bit to dictate pocketability. While both are fairly uncomfortable, the Fold's thinner profile definitely helps. That, and also the added protection from the display folded, might prove to be more durable in the long run. Compare that to Huawei, it's pretty much an all-foldable display body that looks much more like a current-gen smartphone, which is great and more usable, especially for daily multitasking between applications instead of the Fold, where the external screen is definitely a bit too small to use. You can't use it regularly, and it's just about enough for the occasional photo or notification, but more often than not, you'll be using the Fold in tablet form over conventional phone form. In both their open positions, the Huawei's display though definitely stands out. It's much bigger, but the crease on it is also less visible, but you can feel it just a tad bit more when you run your finger over it. What makes the Huawei far better is that it's unobstructed. On the Fold, you get this notch with the cameras, and that just takes away from the experience. In terms of display and speaker quality, the Huawei just seems to have a bit more of a pop visually, although when you look at speakers, the stereo speakers on the Fold do a better job over the Huawei's mono speaker. The other thing to address is, of course, usability. The Fold opens and closes more like a book, and to anyone who hasn't previously used it, usage will come naturally. On the XS, there's one extra step. Huawei's added a single lock button which lets you close the phone in place, and that's not a major thing, just something worth pointing out. Huawei does, however, do the fingerprint scanner much better. It's a side-mounted scanner which also doubles as the power button. On the Fold, you get a similar implementation, but also a separate power button, which just seems a bit counterintuitive to use. Neither phone retains the headphone jack, but you do get a Type-C USB port and speakers, with the Mate XS also coming with Huawei's signature IR blaster. When you compare each phone's thickness when opened, the Mate XS is also much thinner, although it has this grip off to the right side and weighs in at 300 grams compared to the Fold's more uniform design at 263 grams. As for software, there's a big difference. The Fold runs One UI 1.5 on top of Android 9, and while this is a bit outdated, it comes with full Google Play services. On the other hand, the Mate XS ships with Android 10 and EMUI 10.0.1 and Huawei's mobile services. This is a slight drawback, with Huawei's app gallery still developing with more and more applications as we speak, but because the Huawei ships with an AOSP build of Android, you can easily get Google Play services up and running on the tablet or phone in absolutely no time using the short tutorial we've linked above. Overall though, the software experience on both phones has their positives and their negatives. There's a bit more of a seamless experience with the Mate XS, going from the different form factors, and opening and closing just doesn't match that on the Fold. But you do get an option where you can have certain applications continue from the big screen to the small screen, and not just from the small to big like it is by default on the Fold. If you want that smooth transition from the big to small, you'll need to enable that in the settings for specific applications. Also, in some applications, especially stock ones, the Mate XS takes better advantage of the screen real estate by allowing you to see more. It almost seems like Huawei software is tailor-made for the tablet experience, whereas on the Fold, it's just an enlarged version of a phone experience. But say in the keyboard, that's a different experience, where the Fold breaks up the keyboard for a more comfortable experience and the Huawei Mate XS doesn't, but I'm sure this fix will come in the long run. I'm just comparing default applications for this small little test. Of course, all of this smooth software is because the phones come with good hardware. We've got Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 octa-core chip with 12GB of RAM on the Fold versus the new Kirin 990 octa-core on the Mate XS with 8GB of RAM. They also come with 512GB of storage expandable on the Mate XS via nano memory, but of the slower UFS 2.1 type instead of Samsung's UFS 3.0. Both smartphones support 5G, which is great, but I think this gives us a good way to delve into the camera performance. Using 5G, I think the biggest difference will come with video calling, and if you ever find yourself in a position like that, the notch on the primary Fold display we talked about earlier will come in handy. This houses two of its front 10MP and 8MP sensors, so if you ever want to do video calls in tablet mode, it is still possible on the Galaxy Fold. There's another single 10MP cover camera on the phone, as well as a triple camera setup on the back borrowed from the Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus, making for a 6-camera configuration overall. The Mate XS has a slightly different quad camera configuration, definitely an updated one with a 40MP, 16MP, 8MP and a depth sensor combo. With an updated sensor, you'll see better performance from the Mate XS, and if you ever need to take selfies, all you need to do is flip the phone and use its primary camera setup with that extra 6.38-inch display on the back. In terms of video, both smartphones are capable of 60fps 4K video, and if you really want an in-depth camera comparison, do let us know down in the comments below. All that's left to address now is battery. So the Mate XS has a 4500 mAh cell capable of 55W recharging, getting you from 0 to 85% in just 30 minutes. In comparison, you have the Fold's 4235 mAh cell, which supports 15W charging but also brings compatibility for 15W wireless charging and 9W reverse wireless charging, both of which you don't find on the Mate XS. So that wraps up this one. While the Fold is currently available for 7,399 dirhams, the Mate XS is up for pre-order starting 15th March with a local retail price of 9,999 dirhams. Let us know which device you'd prefer down in the comments and why. Thanks for watching, this was Vaibhav and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.